Good morning. Well, we've made it to our last week in class, July 23rd through the 28th, evaluating research reports. And so that means that there's not too much left. Everything that you want to be able to hand in has to be handed in this week if you want any credit for it. But of course, the final proposal and the two assignments due this week, evaluate a research article and letter of consent, are assignments that you cannot resubmit after submitting the first time and getting a grade. So just be aware of that. It's our final week. So here are the activities for the week. You're going to read chapter 22 on evaluating a research report. You are going to do a discussion this week on reporting and critiquing research, and just talk about, in your future or in your current position or future work opportunity, when you may be asked to collect information to prepare for your supervisor or someone else in your work. There may be opportunities that you might have at your work to do this, so just talk about that. It's basically a post on how you might apply what you've learned in this class in your current position or future work opportunity. So then you'll have exam number 3, and that is due, of course, by the end of this week, July 28th at 11:59 p.m. Be sure to have taken that exam. It has 32 multiple choice questions, 2 points each, and you get 2 attempts as before. And if you choose to take advantage of the 2 attempts, your grade will be based on the highest attempt score. So it is to your advantage if you have time and are able to take the test twice. But it's going to be much like the previous exams, where you will get different questions each time you take the exam. From each chapter, there's a pool of questions that it draws from, and a time limit of 2 hours as before. So make sure you finish that last exam for the class. Now that doesn't have, I should mention, I think I mentioned before that it was probably going to have some comprehensive questions, but just because there are so many chapters to cover, I decided just to cover chapters 15 through 22, and actually 21 and 22. The last 2 chapters of the book are together in one pool of questions, so that's how that is set up. And then maybe last but not least, you have an evaluate a research article assignment. You need to get the form that comes with this assignment, download it. It's a Word document, and you mark yes, no, or other options for each item that you're looking for in the article. So you pick an article, probably one from your literature review. Now remember, this article needs to be a primary source of information. It needs to be a research report. So find one that is a report of a research study that is done. And remember, you can tell that by looking for a methods section. And you can also usually read in the abstract to find that the article says that it was a research study and that type of thing. So don't use a secondary source for this. And then mark, what are the different items that you see? Are they there? And these are some ways that you can evaluate a research article in the future as well. This form helps you to do that as you look at different criteria and determine whether they are present or not. And then you're going to write a few paragraphs about the weaknesses and strengths of the research report. Now don't forget to include the APA formatted reference for this article at the top of the assignment. There's a place for that there. So you're going to click on this assignment. Your view will be different than mine, probably, but you can click on this research report evaluation form and you'll get the form. It should download for you and you can open it up and fill it out. But don't forget this part, the article reference in APA format, so that I can also look at the article that you have reviewed. And then you're just basically going to mark yes, no, NA, or you don't know for each item. Is the background information on the problem presented? Is the educational significance of the problem discussed? There's a whole bunch of different things that you'll fill out for the article. And then overall, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the research report? Submit this document after you've filled it out to the Dropbox by the end of this week. And then finally for this week, you will have the letter of consent. And you're going to create a letter of consent for those participating in your study. And it will follow basically the informed consent items here. And we're going back again to the beginning of the semester where we talk about how basic elements of informed consent are important. That someone participating in your study will understand their rights as a study person. They'll understand that their participation in the study is voluntary, and different important elements of informed consent that have to do with that. So you'll fill that out. You'll include 1 through 8 from that website. And remember, Chapter 1 also discusses this. And a couple of sample consent letters that you can actually look at are linked as well, so if you need to follow those as well. But these assignments are pretty self-explanatory. They're just kind of finishing up the different items that you are doing for your study. Another item that you would do if you're going to actually complete a research study beyond the informed consent is to approve or to get approval for your study following Institutional Review Board or IRB requirements, and that would be an application that you would fill out. And for Northern State, we do have an Institutional Review Board, and so you would send that into them and they would approve the study. But that's just for human subject studies, and which I think all of you are doing. And that's also an important process of the part of the research process. So if you were actually going to collect data, you'd have to submit to the IRB and have your study reviewed before collecting data, so that they kind of review it and make sure that your participants understand their rights and that they're being reasonably protected, and that your research study is something that you can do. So that's something to know about as well. But you'll submit these 2 articles, or these 2 assignments, I should say, by the end of this week as well. So there is a lot to do this week, but it is your last week. So that's an important thing. One thing I wanted to talk about was I think last week's discussion was really enlightening. It was great to hear people's opinions on this idea of, does scientific research really have all the answers? And I think most people felt like it probably doesn't, and that's just something that I think that's something we experience on a daily basis. That scientific research is coming a long way, it's moving forward and so forth, but it doesn't necessarily have all the answers. And I think another common discussion thread is that science versus religion. I mentioned faith-based or moral compass, those kinds of things that come into play when we make decisions, or values that we share. And in my opinion, maybe it's somewhat unique, but in my opinion, religion and science do not necessarily have to conflict. In fact, they can be very much in agreement on a lot of issues and so forth. And when they don't agree, in my opinion, or in my belief anyway, I think that eventually science, if taken to its full extreme, will come to the same knowledge maybe that we have through our faith-based principles, or through our knowledge of God and those kinds of things. But that's maybe different than what you believe, and that's okay. So anyway, I don't think that those two necessarily, in my own opinion, don't necessarily have to be separate. They don't have to be conflicting, scientific research and religious belief. But it just depends on what religious belief somebody might have, and also what scientific research might say. But as we know, sometimes scientific research can have its flaws. I mean, it can be, influenced by prevailing paradigms or theories of the day, and also so can religious belief, I suppose. Can have those things that may not have been intended by, let's say if you believe in God, it might not have been intended by God, but maybe people put their own, ideas or philosophies onto it. So it's interesting to think about these things. Anyway, I think this is our last video for the class. Yeah, you just complete the activities for this week and you'll be in good shape. I'll go ahead and grade these as they come in, and I'll sign off saying goodbye and good luck. A lot of you have had some great, I think, growing and stretching in research, and I really appreciate being able to see that in your work. It's been a fun semester. I've seen a lot of great work this semester, and it's been fun to read about different subjects, whether they're within my area of interest or outside. So, but I think a lot of you have come a very long way in learning about how to evaluate research, how to look at research from a critical eye, and how to write about research. And that really is the goal of this class. By the way, you should have gotten an email recently about student opinions of instruction. I do appreciate it if you fill those out. Those will help me to, in the future, redesign this class or make changes as needed to this class to make it a little bit better for future students. And so please do take a moment to fill those out, and we'll catch you later.